The first thing Damon Hayes noticed was not the black convoy parked outside the ballroom. It was his wife. His pregnant wife. The woman he had divorced 24 hours earlier stood beneath the crystal chandeliers of the Imperial Crown Hotel, as though she had not spent the previous night being thrown out of her own home. Nia Adebayo Hayes wore a floor-length black gown that curved elegantly around her 8-month pregnancy. Her dark skin glowed beneath the warm lights, her natural hair swept into a regal braided crown. There were no tears on her face, no desperation, no trace of the woman Damon had expected to come crawling back. Beside her stood Kang Ji-hoon. The Korean businessman's reputation had crossed borders long before he did. In Seoul, board members lowered their voices when they said his name. In London, bankers returned his calls before their wives. And in certain darker circles, men who owed him money rarely slept twice in the same location. Ji-hoon wore a charcoal suit with no tie, his expression calm enough to be mistaken for kindness by anyone who had never seen what happened when his patience ended. The music inside the ballroom slowly died. More than 200 guests turned toward the entrance. At the center of the room, beneath an enormous floral arch, Damon stood beside Celeste Ward, Nia's childhood best friend, and his newly announced fiancé. Celeste's smile disappeared first. Damon's followed a second later. "Nia," he said. She did not answer. Her eyes moved across the ballroom with quiet precision, taking in the champagne towers, the white roses, the gold initials intertwined above the stage. D and C. Damon and Celeste. Her husband had apparently recovered from their marriage with admirable speed. Grief, unlike champagne, had not been included in the evening's budget. Damon stepped forward, anger returning when shock failed to protect him. "What are you doing here?" Nia's gaze settled on him. "I was invited." "By who?" Ji-hoon glanced at the ballroom as though the question bored him. "By me." A murmur moved through the guests. Damon recognized him then. His shoulders stiffened. Everyone in the corporate world knew Kang Ji-hoon. What no one knew was why a man like him had entered Damon's engagement celebration with Damon's pregnant ex-wife on his arm. Celeste recovered enough to laugh. It was a thin, nervous sound. "This is embarrassing," she said. "Nia, whatever performance you're planning, this isn't the place." Nia looked at the woman who had once held her hand at her mother's funeral. The woman who had decorated her baby shower. The woman who had apparently found time between selecting cupcakes and sleeping with her husband. "You're right," Nia said softly. "It isn't." Damon turned toward the security guards near the door. "Remove her." The guards hesitated. Ji-hoon reached inside his jacket. Half the room stopped breathing. He withdrew a slim black folder and placed it on the nearest table. Then he looked at Damon. "Security cannot remove the owner." Silence fell so completely that the soft clink of Celeste's diamond bracelet against her champagne glass sounded like a warning bell. Damon stared at the folder. "The owner of what?" Nia's expression did not change. "Everything you used to impress her." And 24 hours earlier, she had owned nothing but a suitcase. Before we continue, tell us in the comments. If the person you trusted most betrayed you at your weakest moment, would you walk away quietly or make them regret everything? Subscribe and keep watching, because Damon had no idea the divorce papers he forced Nia to sign would become the first evidence used against him. 24 hours earlier, Nia stood barefoot in her kitchen, arranging strawberries on a small vanilla cake. The message written across the top was simple. "It's a girl." She had spent most of the afternoon making it, though the doctor had warned her to rest. At 33 weeks pregnant, even standing for too long made her lower back ache, but Damon had missed the last 2 appointments. Tonight, she hoped the news might remind him that they were still a family. She had dimmed the lights, set 2 plates on the dining table, and placed the ultrasound photograph beside his chair. At 7:30, the food was warm. At 8:15, it was not. At 9, Nia sat alone with one hand resting over her stomach. The baby kicked. "At least one of us is impatient," she whispered. The front door opened at 9:20. Damon entered first. He wore the navy suit Nia had bought him for their 5th anniversary. Behind him came Celeste, dressed in cream silk and avoiding Nia's eyes. A third person followed them, a middle-aged man carrying a leather briefcase. Nia slowly stood. Her smile faded. "Damon." He removed his watch and placed it on the side table. "We need to talk." There were 5 words that had never arrived carrying good news. Nia looked at Celeste. What is she doing here? Celeste folded her arms over her chest. Damon exhaled sharply, as though Nia's confusion inconvenienced him. "This is Mr. Brennan. He's my lawyer." The baby kicked again, harder this time. Nia placed a protective hand over her stomach. "Why is there a lawyer in my house?" Damon looked around the room. The pause before his answer was small, but it told her everything. "This is my house." Something cold moved through her. Mr. Brennan opened his briefcase and removed a stack of documents. Damon did not sit. "I want a divorce." The room seemed to tilt, though nothing moved. Nia stared at him. For several seconds, her mind refused to accept the sentence. It examined each word separately, as though the meaning might improve if properly arranged. It did not. She looked at Celeste again. Her best friend finally met her eyes. And Nia understood. "How long?" Damon's jaw tightened. "Nia, how long have you been sleeping with my husband?" Celeste looked toward Damon, perhaps waiting for him to rescue her. He did not. 8 months, she said. Nia's hand moved instinctively over her stomach. 8 months. She had been pregnant for 8 months. The cruelty of the timing landed with surgical precision. "During my pregnancy?" Celeste's expression shifted into something dangerously close to annoyance. "It wasn't planned." "Neither are most betrayals," Nia replied. "People still seem to find time for them." Damon stepped between them. "This is exactly why I didn't want a scene." Nia turned to him. "A scene? You've been distant for months. Everything is about the baby, the doctor, your exhaustion. I felt invisible in my own marriage." Nia stared at him, genuinely astonished. "You felt invisible?" "I have needs." "So, did your daughter when you missed her appointments?" His face hardened. "Don't use the baby to manipulate me." The words struck deeper than she expected. Nia's voice became quiet. "I baked you a cake." Damon looked toward the kitchen counter. His eyes found the pink lettering. For one fleeting moment, shame crossed his face. Then Celeste touched his arm. The shame disappeared. Mr. Brennan cleared his throat and pushed the documents across the table. "The terms are generous, Mrs. Hayes." Nia did not touch them. Damon did. He turned the pages toward her. "You'll receive $20,000. You can keep your car. I'll also cover 3 months of rent while you find somewhere else." Nia looked up slowly. "Somewhere else? I need you to leave tonight." The silence that followed was not fragile. It was dangerous. Nia looked around the home she had selected, furnished, and paid the first deposit on when Damon's company had consisted of one rented office and an inspirational quote taped crookedly to the wall. "You're throwing me out." "This doesn't have to be ugly." Celeste glanced at the cake. "I'll be moving in after the engagement announcement." Nia turned toward her. "You're moving into my home?" Celeste lifted her chin. "Damon said you never contributed financially." That was when Nia almost laughed. Not because anything was funny. Sometimes the mind laughed when screaming would damage the furniture. She finally picked up the documents. The agreement stated that she would surrender all claims to Damon's company, the marital home, future profits, and any assets acquired during their marriage. It also included a confidentiality clause preventing her from discussing the affair. Damon placed a pen beside her. "Sign it, Nia." She continued reading. "You seem anxious." "I want this finished." "Of course you do." On the 7th page, Nia stopped. Her eyes narrowed. At the bottom of an attached financial authorization form was her signature, except she had never signed it. The shape was nearly perfect, but the final stroke curved in the wrong direction. Damon had watched her write her name for 6 years and still had not noticed that she always lifted her pen before the last letter. Carelessness was an arrogant man's favorite confession. Nia glanced at Damon. He mistook her silence for defeat. "You're being offered more than you deserve." She took her phone from the table. "What are you doing?" "Reading." "You don't need to photograph anything." "Then you shouldn't mind if I do." Damon reached for the papers, but Nia pulled them away. Ji-hoon would later tell her that this was the moment she stopped being Damon's abandoned wife and began becoming her mother's daughter. But Nia knew none of that yet. She only knew that her husband had betrayed her, her best friend had helped him, and someone had forged her name. She photographed every page. Then she signed only the acknowledgement, confirming that she had received the documents. Not the divorce settlement, not the asset waiver, not the lie. Damon barely checked. He was too eager to watch her leave. Nia went upstairs and packed one suitcase. When she returned, Celeste was cutting the cake. The knife passed directly through the words, "It's a girl." Nia paused near the doorway. Damon avoided her eyes. She looked at the man she had loved, supported, and defended, when everyone else called his dreams unrealistic. "You should have checked whose money built your company before asking me to leave it." Damon gave a short laugh. "Your money?" Nia opened the door. "No," she said. "That's the problem." She stepped into the cold night, with one suitcase, an unborn child, and no place to sleep. Behind her, the locks clicked. Ahead of her, a line of black vehicles turned slowly onto the street. The first car stopped beside her. A tall Korean man stepped out, opened an umbrella, and spoke the name her mother had hidden from the world. "Miss Nia Adesawa Adebayo," Kang Ji-hoon said. "I have been looking for you for 12 years. Nia stared at him through the rain. Ji-hoon lowered his gaze toward the suitcase in her hand. Then he looked at the house behind her. "Tell me," he said calmly, "did Damon Hayes throw you out of a property you own?" And for the first time that night, Nia forgot how to breathe. For several seconds, Nia heard nothing but rain striking the umbrella above her. Kang Ji-hoon stood between her and the black vehicle, one hand resting at his side, the other holding the umbrella with effortless patience. He had used her full name. Not Nia Hayes. Not even Nia Adebayo. Nia Adesawa Adebayo. The name her mother had whispered only when she was angry, frightened, or reminding Nia that she came from women who did not bend simply because life had placed a hand on their necks. "How do you know that name?" Nia asked. Ji-hoon's gaze remained steady. "Your mother told me." "My mother has been dead for 12 years. "Yes." The single word carried no hesitation. Nia tightened her grip around the suitcase handle. "And you waited until tonight to introduce yourself." "I was instructed not to approach you until certain conditions were met." "What conditions?" Ji-hoon glanced toward the house behind her. "One of them just changed the locks." Despite everything, a humorless laugh escaped her. Apparently, betrayal had not destroyed her ability to recognize accurate insults. The rear door of the vehicle opened. A woman in a dark coat stepped out and hurried toward them with a second umbrella. She bowed slightly to Ji-hoon before offering Nia a folded cashmere blanket. "My name is Seo Yuna," she said. "I am Mr. Kang's legal advisor." Nia did not accept the blanket. "Does everyone in this car know who I am except me?" Yuna's expression softened. That is a fair question. It wasn't meant to be fair. Ji-hoon opened the vehicle door wider. You are cold, heavily pregnant, and standing in the rain outside a house that may legally belong to you. We can discuss the rest somewhere safer. Nia looked past him into the vehicle. Polished black leather, frosted glass, a driver who faced forward with the rigid posture of a man who had been trained not to hear anything that might later require a statement. Everything about the car said money. Everything about Ji-hoon said the money was the least dangerous thing inside it. I am not going anywhere with a stranger. Ji-hoon nodded once. A sensible response. He reached into his jacket slowly and handed her a photograph. Nia nearly dropped it. Her mother stood in the center of the faded image, younger than Nia remembered her. She was wearing a cream trouser suit, her natural hair pinned away from her face. Beside her stood a Korean man with silver-rimmed glasses. Behind them was a much younger Ji-hoon. He could not have been older than 20. Nia stared at her mother's hand resting on his shoulder. On the back of the photograph, written in her mother's unmistakable handwriting, were 6 words. Protect her when the door closes. Nia read the sentence twice, then a third time. Her anger did not disappear. It simply changed direction. Where did you get this? My father kept it. Who was your father? Your mother's business partner. Nia looked at him sharply. My mother taught economics at a university. She did. That was her business. No, Ji-hoon said. That was the part of her life she allowed people to see. A contraction like pressure tightened beneath Nia's ribs. Not labor. Stress. Her doctor had warned her that the body sometimes responded to emotional shock by rehearsing disaster. Ji-hoon noticed the change in her breathing. His eyes moved to her stomach. Are you in pain? I'm fine. That answer is popular among people who are clearly not fine. And asking personal questions is popular among men who arrive in convoys. Yuna looked down, hiding the beginning of a smile. Ji-hoon did not smile, but something in his face shifted. Get into the car, Miss Adebayo. You may keep the door unlocked, sit beside Miss Co. and call the police if I say anything you dislike. You think the police would frighten you? No. Then why mention them? Because they may reassure you. That answer disturbed her more than arrogance would have. Nia looked once at the locked house. Through the window, she could see Celeste moving between the living room and kitchen as though she had lived there for years. Damon appeared behind her carrying 2 champagne glasses. Nia's chest tightened. Ji-hoon followed her gaze. His face revealed nothing, but his voice grew colder. You can stand here and watch them celebrate your removal, he said, or you can come with me and learn why your husband has spent the last 6 years living on borrowed power. Nia entered the car, not because she trusted him, because she wanted answers more than she feared the man offering them. The convoy moved through the city in silence. Nia sat beside Yuna, while Ji-hoon faced them from the opposite seat. No one touched her suitcase. No one asked her to explain why she had only packed 1 pair of shoes and 3 baby outfits. Ji-hoon poured water into a glass and placed it within her reach. She did not drink it. You said Damon's company was built with someone else's money, she said. With yours. I didn't have money. You had a trust. Nia stared at him. What trust? Ji-hoon handed Yuna a slim tablet. She opened a folder and turned the screen toward Nia. At the top of the first document was the name, Adesawa International Holdings. Beneath it were dozens of subsidiary companies spread across Lagos, Seoul, London, Dubai, Singapore, and Johannesburg. Logistics, real estate, infrastructure, private equity, medical research. Nia scrolled slowly. The numbers made no immediate sense. There were too many zeros for the human mind to process without becoming suspicious. She looked up. This is not my mother's. Ji-hoon's answer was immediate. It was. My mother worried about electricity bills. Your mother wanted you to believe she did. She drove a 10-year-old car. She owned part of the company that manufactured it. Nia stared at him. Ji-hoon leaned back. Your mother believed visible wealth created visible enemies. She lived modestly because she understood that the safest crown is the one no one knows you are wearing. Nia returned her attention to the screen. An old corporate photograph showed her mother seated at the head of a long table. Men twice her age leaned toward her as she spoke. She did not look like a lecturer. She looked like a woman who could reduce a billionaire to an apology without raising her voice. Why did she hide this from me? Protection. From who? That answer is more complicated. Try me. Ji-hoon's gaze hardened slightly. Your mother's empire was legitimate. Some of the alliances that protected it were not. Nia looked at him. And you were one of those alliances. My family was. Mafia. Yuna's fingers paused over the tablet. Ji-hoon did not deny it. People use that word carelessly. Should I use organized crime instead? You may use whichever term makes you feel safer. Neither does. Good. Safety is often where intelligent people become careless. Nia studied him. He did not speak like a criminal trying to appear respectable. He spoke like a respectable man who had long stopped pretending he was harmless. What does any of this have to do with Damon? Yuna opened another folder. 6 years ago, Damon Hayes applied for private funding after 3 banks rejected his business proposal. Nia remembered that period. Damon had come home devastated, saying no one believed in him. She had spent the night rewriting his proposal and comforting him. 2 weeks later, he had announced that an anonymous investor had saved the company. Nia had called it a miracle. Apparently, miracles kept legal records. The investor was Adesawa Holdings, she asked. Yes, Yuna said. The trust provided the initial capital, guaranteed his first commercial loans, and purchased the land beneath his company headquarters. Nia's throat tightened. Why? Ji-hoon answered. Because you asked your mother's attorney to help him. I never spoke to an attorney. You wrote a letter after her funeral. Nia frowned. She remembered writing dozens of letters that year. Some to relatives, some to her mother, some to no one in particular. I wrote that Damon had dreams, she said slowly, that I wish my mother had met him. Your mother's trustee interpreted that as a request to support your future husband. My future husband. Not to gift him an empire. Yuna tapped the screen. A shareholding document appeared. Nia's name was listed through a private trust as the beneficial owner of 51% of Hayes Urban Development. Her hands went still. She read it again. 51%. Not a loan. Not a silent investment. Control. Damon knows. He knows the majority shares belong to an unnamed trust, Yuna said. He does not know you are the beneficiary. Nia thought of every time Damon had told her she contributed nothing, every dinner she had cooked while he worked late, every report she had proofread, every client presentation she had redesigned. Every year she had postponed returning to work because he said the company needed stability at home. The company had not merely survived because of her sacrifices. It had survived because her money had been holding it upright while Damon posed for photographs beneath its name. He called me a burden, she whispered. Ji-hoon watched her carefully. Men often insult the bridge after they have crossed it. Nia looked at the documents again. You said he forged my signature. That is only the beginning. Yuna opened a series of financial statements. Over the previous 18 months, Damon had transferred company funds into consulting firms connected to Celeste. He had used trust-owned property as collateral for private loans and attempted to sell 2 commercial buildings without shareholder approval. The forged signature Nia had photographed authorized one of those transfers. He was trying to make me surrender my rights before the transaction was discovered. Nia said. Yes, Ji-hoon replied. And Celeste? Her family's cosmetics company is close to bankruptcy. Damon promised to use the sale proceeds to save it. Nia leaned back slowly. Celeste had not stolen her husband purely for love. She had stolen a man she believed came with buildings attached. There was something almost poetic about two opportunists selecting each other and calling it destiny. How much did they take? Yuna gave her the figure. Nia closed her eyes. It was more money than some people earned in 3 lifetimes. When she opened them, Ji-hoon was still watching her. I can end this tonight, he said. How? Freeze every account. Remove Damon from the building. Deliver the evidence to the Financial Crimes Division. By morning, he will have no company, no house, and very little freedom. Nia stared at him. And Celeste? Her accounts would be included. The offer was calm. Too calm. Ji-hoon spoke about destroying lives the way other men discussed rescheduling lunch. Part of Nia wanted to say yes. Part of her wanted Damon to wake up in a world where every door he had slammed in her face now belonged to her. But revenge taken by another person was only borrowed power, and Nia had borrowed enough. No, she said. Yuna looked up. Ji-hoon's expression remained unreadable. No, I don't want you to destroy him. Mercy is admirable, he said. It is also frequently wasted. This is not mercy. Then what is it? Nia placed the tablet between them. If you remove him tonight, Damon will spend the rest of his life claiming a powerful man destroyed him because of me. Ji-hoon waited. I want him to understand that I did it myself. Something sharpened in Ji-hoon's eyes. Interest. Perhaps approval. Perhaps recognition. You have never managed a corporation of this size, he said. Then teach me. You are 8 months pregnant. I noticed. You have no formal executive experience. I spent 6 years correcting Damon's mistakes before he presented them as his ideas. That is not the same as controlling an international group. No, Nia said. It sounds harder. Yuna stopped pretending not to smile. Ji-hoon leaned forward, resting his elbows lightly on his knees. What exactly are you asking me for? Nia met his gaze. I don't want you to fight my battle. The car entered a private underground garage beneath a tower Nia had passed hundreds of times without knowing who owned it. I want you to show me where the weapons are. For the first time, Ji-hoon smiled. It was small, brief, and somehow more dangerous than his silence. The vehicle stopped. The door opened onto a marble lobby stretching toward a wall of glass. Above the reception desk, illuminated in gold, were the words, Adesawa International Holdings. Nia stepped out slowly. Employees in dark suits turned toward her. One by one, they stood. At the far end of the lobby was a portrait of her mother, not the gentle woman who packed sandwiches and reminded Nia to carry an umbrella. This woman wore black, sat in a high-backed chair, and looked directly into the camera as though daring the world to underestimate her. Beneath the portrait was a bronze inscription. Samuela Adesawa Adebayo, founder, strategist, architect of the empire. Nia approached it. Her mother had possessed an entire world and taken the truth to her grave. Ji-hoon stopped beside her. There is one more thing you should know. Nia did not look away from the portrait. What? Your mother did not appoint me only to protect the trust. She turned. Ji-hoon held her gaze. She appointed me to protect you from whoever killed her. The room seemed to lose its air. Nia's fingers closed around the photograph still in her hand. My mother died in a car accident. That, Ji-hoon said quietly, is what they needed you to believe. Nia stared at Ji-hoon as though the correct arrangement of his face might reveal whether he was lying. It did not. Kang Ji-hoon's expression remained calm, but calm was not the same as harmless. Storms were calm from a distance too. My mother was killed. Nia asked. We believe so. We. My father. Her attorney. 3 people who investigated the crash before the evidence disappeared. Nia looked back at the portrait. 12 years ago, a police officer had arrived at her university dormitory and told her that her mother's car had lost control on a wet road. There had been a funeral, a closed coffin. Relatives who kept saying it had been God's because people often blamed God when human answers became inconvenient. What evidence? She asked. Ji-hoon nodded toward Yuna. The attorney opened another file on the tablet. Your mother's vehicle was inspected 2 weeks before the accident, Yuna explained. The brakes were in perfect condition. After the crash, the inspection report disappeared. That proves nothing. No, Ji-hoon said, but the mechanic who inspected the car disappeared too. Nia's eyes moved to him. Disappeared. He left his apartment, abandoned his bank accounts, and never contacted his family again. A cold pressure settled in her chest. Why wasn't I told? You were 21, Ji-hoon replied. You had no access to the company and no knowledge of your mother's enemies. Telling you would have made you frightened without making you safer. You don't get to decide what truth I can survive. No, he said quietly. Your mother did. The answer angered her, because part of it was true. Nia turned away from him. For 12 years, she had believed grief was the worst thing her mother had left behind. Now she had inherited questions. Questions she was beginning to understand were often more dangerous than money. Who killed her? We do not know. Then find out. I have been trying. For 12 years. Ji-hoon's jaw tightened. My father continued the investigation until he disappeared 5 years ago. The anger left Nia's voice. Your father is missing? Yes. And you think the same people were responsible? I think your mother discovered something powerful enough to frighten people who were not easily frightened. Nia looked at her mother's portrait again. Behind the authority in the woman's eyes, she now imagined fear. Not fear for herself, fear for her daughter. Nia rested one hand on her stomach. She suddenly understood why her mother had hidden the empire. Power did not only attract admiration. It attracted people who wanted to own it, steal it, or bury anyone standing between them and it. Ji-hoon watched the movement of her hand. You should rest. Nia faced him. My husband is moving stolen money. My mother may have been murdered, and I've apparently inherited a global corporation protected by the Korean Mafia. She glanced at the clock above the reception desk. It is 11:40 at night. Yes. Rest feels ambitious. Ji-hoon gave Yuna a quiet instruction. Within minutes, they were escorted to the executive floor. The lift opened into a private office overlooking the city. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed hundreds of lights below them. On the wall hung maps marked with shipping routes, investment zones, and international properties. At the center of the office stood a long conference table covered with sealed folders. Nia stopped. You prepared all this before finding me? Ji-hoon removed his jacket and placed it over the back of a chair. I expected our first meeting to occur under less dramatic circumstances. You expected me to be thrown out more politely? I expected Damon to wait until the asset transfer was complete. Nia sat carefully. Her lower back protested. Ji-hoon noticed and moved a cushioned chair toward her, without comment. She noticed that too. I need to know everything Damon has done, she said. Yuna sat beside her and opened the first folder. For the next 3 hours, Nia read. Damon had not simply stolen money. He had constructed an illusion. He moved funds between subsidiaries to make failing developments appear profitable. He used deposits from unfinished properties to finance new projects. He borrowed against land owned by the Adesawa Trust and redirected part of the loans through consulting companies connected to Celeste. But the worst discovery was buried in an employee benefits report. Nia read the page twice. Then she pushed it toward Yuna. What is this? Yuna examined it. A restructuring proposal. No, look at the pension reserve. Ji-hoon moved closer. Damon had withdrawn nearly 40% of the company's employee pension fund and replaced the money with shares in a shell company. A shell company owned by one of Celeste's cousins. If this collapses, Nia said, hundreds of employees lose their retirement savings. It will collapse, Yuna replied. Nia's face hardened. Damon had spent years telling her that business required sacrifice. Apparently, he had neglected to mention that he preferred other people to make it. Freeze the pension account, Nia said. Yuna hesitated. We can freeze future withdrawals, but authorizing that action will reveal that the majority shareholder has become active. Good. Ji-hoon studied her. Damon will know someone is moving against him. He should. You have not yet reviewed the full company structure. I don't need the full company structure to understand theft. Ji-hoon leaned against the table. An emotional decision made too quickly can create legal weaknesses. Nia met his gaze. Is protecting employees emotional? No. Then what are you objecting to? I am testing whether you understand the consequences. She pushed the document toward him. The consequence of waiting is that Damon moves the remaining money before morning. Freeze it. A brief silence followed. Then Ji-hoon looked at Yuna. Do it. Yuna began typing. Nia returned to the files. At 3 a.m, Ji-hoon placed a plate of food beside her. She glanced down. Fruit, toast and eggs. I didn't ask for this. No. Do people normally obey you when you bring them breakfast? Most people obey me before breakfast. Nia almost smiled. Almost. She ate because the baby demanded more practical decisions than pride. By dawn, she understood more about Hayes' urban development than Damon likely believed she ever would. Her years in financial compliance had taught her how to follow irregular transactions. Her years of marriage had taught her how Damon lied. The combination was unexpectedly useful. At 6:30, a message appeared on Yuna's laptop. She turned the screen toward Nia. Damon had requested an emergency board meeting for 8 o'clock. He discovered the freeze. Yuna said. Ji-hoon buttoned his jacket. He will try to persuade the board that the trust is interfering with daily operations. Nia stood slowly. Then I should attend. Ji-hoon looked at her black dress from the previous night. You should change. Nia raised an eyebrow. Is my ownership dependent on tailoring? No, but people who underestimate women are often distracted by presentation. It is useful to decide what you want them looking at. An hour later, Nia entered the boardroom, wearing a deep emerald suit selected from a private wardrobe her mother had apparently maintained for the daughter she never knew would return. The jacket rested elegantly over her pregnancy. Her mother's gold fountain pen sat in her pocket. Ji-hoon walked beside her, but he did not enter first. That detail mattered. 12 board members sat around the table. Damon stood at the far end, speaking angrily into his phone. When he saw Nia, his mouth remained open for 1 second too long. You. Nia took the empty chair at the head of the table. Good morning, Damon. His gaze moved from her suit to Ji-hoon. What is he doing here? Ji-hoon remained near the door, observing. This is a private board meeting. Nia placed a folder on the table. Then you should not have invited people who don't own the company. Damon laughed. Several directors did not. One of them, an older woman named Ruth Ellison, looked from Nia to the documents in front of her. Mrs. Hayes, on whose authority was the pension account frozen? Mine. Damon struck the table with his palm. You have no authority here. Yuna entered and distributed sealed documents to each director. Damon tore his open. The color left his face. Nia watched him read the ownership declaration, naming her as the controlling beneficiary of the trust that held 51% of the company. For 6 years, Damon had spoken over her in restaurants, interrupted her in meetings, and corrected facts she had taught him 5 minutes earlier. Now he appeared to have lost his relationship with language. "This is fake," he finally said. "It is certified," Yuna replied. Damon turned toward Ji-hoon. "You set this up." Ji-hoon's voice remained calm. "No. Your wife's mother set it up before you learned how to tie a respectable tie." One of the directors coughed to hide a laugh. Damon looked at Nia. "You knew." "Not until last night." "And now you think you can walk in here and run my company?" Nia opened the pension report. "No, Damon. I think I can walk in here and stop you from stealing from it." The room changed. Board members sat straighter. Damon's confidence cracked. That money was temporarily reallocated to a shell company controlled by Celeste's cousin. It was an investment. In what? Damon said nothing. Nia turned to the board. "Effective immediately, all transfers above $50,000 require dual authorization from the trust. An independent forensic audit will begin today. The pension reserve will be restored using funds recovered from unauthorized executive bonuses." Damon stared at her. "You cannot do this." Nia removed her mother's pen. She signed the authorization. "I just did." Ruth Ellison read the resolution and nodded. "I support the audit." Another director raised his hand. "So do I." Then another. Within 30 seconds, the vote was unanimous. Damon remained standing while the room he believed belonged to him quietly chose his wife. Nia looked up at him. "You once told me leadership meant making difficult decisions." Her voice stayed calm. "You were right. So I've decided you will no longer have access to company funds without supervision." Damon's face burned. "This is not over." "No," Nia said. "It has only just become honest." As Damon stormed from the room, Ji-hoon's eyes followed him. Then he looked at Nia. There was no pity in his expression, only respect. And for the first time since the divorce papers were placed in front of her, Nia felt something stronger than pain. She felt capable. If you are already on Team Nia, comment, "The owner has arrived," and subscribe, because Damon had only lost control of one account. He was about to discover that the house, the company, and the future he promised Celeste had never truly belonged to him. After the directors left, Nia remained in her chair. Her hands began to tremble. Ji-hoon closed the boardroom door. "You hid that well." "I was busy." "You were afraid." "I was furious." "They often share a room." Nia looked at him. "Did I make any mistakes?" "Yes." Her confidence dipped. Ji-hoon approached the table. "You allowed Damon to leave with his phone." Nia's eyes narrowed. "What will he do?" "Call every ally he has. Move any money we have not found. And warn Celeste. Can we stop him?" Ji-hoon looked through the glass wall toward the city. "We can." "Then why did you let him leave?" He turned back to her. "Because frightened men run toward the secrets they value most." Understanding moved across Nia's face. "You want him to lead us to the rest of the stolen money." "I want him to show us who helped him steal it." Nia stood. "And if he leads us to the person connected to my mother's death?" Ji-hoon's expression darkened. "Then the divorce will become the least important war we are fighting." Across the city, Damon entered his car and called Celeste. She answered on the 4th ring. "What happened?" Damon gripped the steering wheel. "Nia owns the company." Celeste laughed. When Damon remained silent, she stopped. "What do you mean, she owns it?" 51%. There was a long pause. Then Celeste asked the question that revealed where her heart had always been. "What about the mansion?" Damon closed his eyes. He did not know. And for the first time, Celeste wondered whether she had betrayed her best friend for a man who did not own a single thing he had promised her. Celeste arrived at the mansion before Damon did. She used the key he had given her, entered through the front door, and immediately began opening drawers. Not because she was searching for evidence, because frightened people often touched expensive things to reassure themselves that those things were still theirs. She checked the property documents in Damon's study. The first folder contained utility bills. The second contained insurance policies. The third held the title deed. Celeste read the owner's name once. Then again, Adesawa Property Trust. Her fingers tightened around the paper. She searched the garage records. Next, the black Range Rover was leased through Hayes Urban Development. The silver sports car belonged to a subsidiary controlled by the same trust. Even the artwork in the living room had been purchased as corporate assets. Damon had promised her a mansion, luxury cars, and a life among the elite. What he actually owned appeared to be 3 watches, several suits, and an alarming amount of confidence. The front door opened. Damon entered with his tie loose and anger radiating from him. Celeste marched into the hallway, holding the title deed. "You said this house was yours." He stopped. "It is." "Then why is her trust listed as the owner?" Damon snatched the document from her. "This is temporary. Temporary ownership. The company purchased the house for tax purposes. The company she owns. She does not own the company. You told me she owns 51%. Damon threw the document onto the table. "She only controls the trust because someone manipulated the paperwork." Celeste folded her arms. "Can she take the house?" "No." "You hesitated." "I did not." "You did." Damon walked toward the drinks cabinet. Celeste followed him. "What about the apartment in Dubai?" "Company asset." "The commercial building you promised my father." He poured whiskey into a glass. "Company asset." "The cars." "Celeste, what do you actually own?" Damon drank. The silence answered before he could. Celeste stepped back. For months, she had imagined Nia as the foolish wife who had failed to recognize her husband's value. Now she wondered whether Nia had been the only valuable person in the marriage. Damon's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and declined the call. Who was that? The bank. Why are they calling? He poured another drink. The trust froze my personal credit line. Celeste stared at him. You said only the company accounts were affected. I will fix it. How? I'm going to talk to Nia. Celeste's face changed. You're going to beg her? I'm going to remind her that we are still married. You served her divorce papers. They haven't been finalized. Damon picked up his jacket. Celeste blocked his path. And what exactly will you tell her? That we made a mistake. You were involved. Celeste's eyes sharpened. You told me your marriage was already over. It was. You told me Nia had no legal claim to the company. I believed that. You told me you were worth millions. I am. On paper, Celeste said. And apparently the paper belongs to Nia. Damon's hand tightened around his jacket. I need her to cooperate. Once the company is transferred, everything returns to normal. Celeste looked at him carefully. And after that, we proceed with the engagement. It was the correct answer. It did not sound sincere. Celeste stepped aside. As Damon left, she picked up her phone. For the first time since beginning the affair, she called someone without telling him. Her father. Across the city, Nia sat in her mother's former office studying the records of 6 international subsidiaries. Ji-hoon stood near the window speaking quietly in Korean. She understood none of the words, but the tone required no translation. Someone had disappointed him. The person on the other end was unlikely to enjoy the correction. He ended the call and turned toward her. The missing funds were divided between 4 companies. Connected to Celeste. 2 are. One belongs to Damon's attorney. And the 4th. Ji-hoon walked to the table and placed a photograph in front of her. The image showed Damon entering a private club with an older man in a dark overcoat. Nia recognized him immediately. Richard Vale, chairman of Vale Meridian Bank. One of the last men to meet her mother before she died. Nia's fingers went still. He knew my mother. Yes. He spoke at her funeral. I know. He told me she had been proud of me. Ji-hoon's expression hardened. Men like Vale often stand closest to the coffin, so no one asks where they were when the person died. Nia looked at the photograph. Is he connected to the accident? We do not have proof, but you suspect him. I suspect anyone who profited from her silence. Before Nia could respond, Yuna entered. Damon is downstairs. Nia looked up. He came here. He demanded to see his wife. Ji-hoon's face became very still. It was not jealousy. Not quite. But something in the room cooled. Nia closed the folder. Send him up. Ji-hoon looked at her. You do not have to meet him alone. I know. I can remain. I know. She stood and smoothed the front of her dress. But I need to hear which lie he chooses when he realizes the truth will not save him. Ji-hoon held her gaze for a moment. Then he walked toward the side door. I will be in the adjoining room. You plan to listen? Yes. At least you're honest. I find dishonesty inefficient. Damon entered 2 minutes later. He had changed his shirt, fixed his tie, and arranged his face into the expression he used whenever he wanted forgiveness without accountability. For years, Nia had mistaken that expression for vulnerability. Now she recognized it as preparation. He looked around the office. So it's true. Nia remained behind the desk. What is? All of this belongs to you. Not all of it. Hope flickered in his eyes. Only the parts you tried to steal. His jaw tightened. Nia, I came here to speak calmly. You arrived with a lawyer when you asked for a divorce. I handled that badly. You brought my best friend into our home. I know. She cut the cake I made to announce our daughter. Damon looked away. For once, the memory appeared to embarrass him. I was angry. At what? At how distant we had become. You slept with Celeste for 8 months. I made a mistake. A mistake is putting salt in coffee. You maintained a second relationship through most of my pregnancy. He took a step toward the desk. Nia, we were under pressure. The company was expanding. You were always tired. We stopped being ourselves. I was carrying your child. Our child. The correction came quickly. Too quickly. Nia looked at him. Yesterday, you called her a manipulation. I was upset. You missed 6 medical appointments. I can change. You told your lawyer you did not want parental obligations until a paternity test was completed. Damon's face changed. Nia opened a drawer and removed a copy of the document Yuna had found that morning. Damon had signed it weeks before serving the divorce papers. It stated that he questioned the child's paternity and would voluntarily surrender custodial claims until independent testing was completed. The clause had been designed to help him avoid financial responsibility during the divorce. Now it stood between him and Nia's fortune. She placed the paper on the desk. Did you believe she wasn't yours? Damon stared at his signature. Nia. Answer me. No. Then why did you sign it? My lawyer said it was standard protection. Protection from your unborn daughter. I intended to change it later. When? He said nothing. After you learned she was connected to an empire? That's not fair. Nia almost admired the sentence. Damon had thrown her out while she was pregnant, forged her signature, and tried to steal employee pensions. Yet fairness had finally entered the conversation because he required it. He moved closer. We can fix this. What exactly do you want to fix? The marriage or the balance sheet? Both. Nia stared at him. Then she laughed. It was not loud. That made it worse. Damon's face darkened. You think this man cares about you? Ji-hoon's name did not need to be spoken. Nia stopped laughing. You came here to apologize and somehow found a way to insult another man before admitting what you did. He is using you. For what? Control of the trust. He already controlled it before I arrived. Damon hesitated. Nia continued. He could have kept me ignorant and ruled everything in my name. Instead, he showed me the records you hid. He wants something. So did you. The words landed cleanly. Damon leaned over the desk. I am your husband. Not for long. I can challenge the trust. You can. I can stop every project, every transfer, and every board decision for years. Nia's expression cooled. There you are. Damon straightened. What? The man beneath the apology. His face hardened fully. If you humiliate me publicly, I will fight you. You humiliated yourself privately. I'm only arranging witnesses. He stared at her. You think one board meeting makes you a businesswoman? No. Nia stood. But 6 years of cleaning up your mistakes gave me a useful education. Damon picked up the document concerning his parental rights. You cannot keep my daughter from me. You kept yourself from her. I will go to court. You should. Courts enjoy forged signatures and missing pension funds. His hand tightened around the paper. The side door opened. Ji-hoon entered. He did not hurry. Men like him rarely did. Urgency suggested uncertainty. Damon turned. This is between me and my wife. Ji-hoon stopped beside Nia's desk. She asked you to leave. She said no such thing. Nia looked at Damon. Leave. Damon's face reddened. For a moment, he looked as though he might refuse. Ji-hoon adjusted one cuff. The movement was subtle. Damon stepped back. At the door, he turned toward Nia. Celeste and I are announcing our engagement tomorrow night. Every investor who matters will be there. I know. Stay away. Nia held his gaze. I own the building hosting the gala. Damon's confidence faltered. Nia continued. I'll see you tomorrow. After he left, the office became quiet. Ji-hoon looked toward the closed door. He threatened you. He revealed himself. That is not the same thing. It is more useful. Ji-hoon turned toward her. You do not have to keep proving you are unafraid. Nia's composure shifted. Only slightly. I am afraid. The admission seemed to surprise him. She rested one hand against her stomach. I'm afraid Damon will damage the company before I can protect it. I'm afraid the person who killed my mother will come for my child. I'm afraid I'll make the wrong decision because everyone expects me to become a woman I never knew existed. Ji-hoon stepped closer. You are not required to become your mother. She built all of this and hid it from you. Nia looked up. He continued. You may respect what she created without repeating every choice she made. What if I'm not ready? No one who desires power is ever ready for it. That is not comforting. It was not intended to be. A smile touched her lips despite herself. Ji-hoon looked at it for a second too long. The silence between them changed. Not dramatically. There was no sudden kiss, no declaration, no music swelling conveniently in the background. Only awareness. The dangerous understanding that two people who had spent years protecting themselves had begun to notice where the other person was wounded. Ji-hoon reached into his jacket and placed a small velvet box on the desk. Nia opened it. Inside lay a gold necklace with an emerald pendant. She recognized it from her mother's portrait. She wore this at the founding ceremony. Ji-hoon said, Nia touched the pendant carefully. I thought it was lost. My father kept it safe. Why give it to me now? Tomorrow, you will enter a room filled with people who believe Damon created everything they see. He lifted the necklace from the box. With your permission. Nia turned. Ji-hoon fastened it around her neck. His fingers did not touch her skin longer than necessary. That restraint affected her more than boldness might have. When she faced him again, the emerald rested above her heart. What do you see? She asked. Ji-hoon looked at her, not the necklace, the rightful owner. The following evening, the Imperial Crown Hotel glittered beneath hundreds of lights. Inside the ballroom, Damon and Celeste welcomed investors beneath an arch bearing their initials. Celeste wore a white gown designed to resemble a wedding dress. Damon smiled for cameras while silently watching the entrance. At exactly 8 o'clock, the ballroom doors opened. Nia stood beneath the chandeliers in black, one hand resting over her unborn daughter. Ji-hoon stood beside her. The conversations died one by one. Celeste's champagne glass trembled. Damon stepped off the stage. What are you doing here? Nia looked at the flowers, the cameras, and the empire her husband had used to celebrate replacing her. Then she smiled. I came to collect what belongs to me. Damon stared at Nia as if confidence alone could erase her from the ballroom. Around him, investors, journalists, and members of the board watched in uncomfortable silence. Celeste recovered first. She stepped forward, forcing a smile that did not reach her eyes. Nia, this is an engagement celebration. Whatever argument you have with Damon can wait. Nia looked at the white gown Celeste had chosen for another woman's husband. This is not an argument. Her gaze moved to the stage. It is a shareholders' meeting with better flowers. A few guests laughed before remembering whose party they were attending. Damon's face tightened. You were told to stay away. And you were told not to transfer company assets without authorization. Nia walked farther into the room. Ji-hoon remained beside her, but slightly behind. He was not leading her. He was making it impossible for anyone else to block her path. Damon glanced toward the security guards. Remove her. No one moved. I said remove her. One of the guards approached, cautiously. Ji-hoon reached inside his jacket. Several guests stepped back. He removed the slim black folder, placed it on a nearby table, and opened it. Security cannot remove the owner. Damon gave a short, bitter laugh. The owner of what? Nia looked around the ballroom. At the flowers paid for through a corporate account. At the champagne purchased with money Damon had withdrawn from an employee reserve. At Celeste's jewelry, charged to a company expense card under the description of investor relations. Everything you used to impress her. Yuna entered with 3 legal representatives and members of the board behind her. Ruth Ellison walked directly toward the stage. Damon stared at them. What is this? An emergency board resolution. Ruth said, This is my engagement party. No, Nia replied. It is a company-funded event inside a trust-owned hotel. Celeste looked at Damon. You said you paid for this. I did. Nia glanced at Yuna. The attorney opened a document. The hotel invoice was charged to Hayes Urban Development. The floral arrangement was listed as a client development expense. Miss Ward's gown was purchased through a consulting firm currently under investigation for receiving unauthorized transfers. Every face in the ballroom turned toward Celeste. Her hand moved to the white fabric as though it had suddenly become evidence. This dress was a gift. Yes, Nia said, from the employees whose pensions Damon emptied. The room erupted in murmurs. Damon moved toward Nia. That money was invested. Then explain the investment. I don't discuss confidential business matters in public. You discussed my divorce publicly. His mouth closed. Nia stepped onto the stage. The screen behind her, which had displayed photographs of Damon, and Celeste went dark. A moment later, financial records appeared. Bank transfers, shell companies, forged authorizations, property titles. Nia watched Damon's face as each lie became visible. She had imagined this moment during the previous 24 hours. In some versions, she shouted. In others, she slapped him. But standing there now, she understood that anger did not need volume when it carried documentation. The majority shareholder has completed an initial review, Nia said. We found unauthorized transfers totaling more than $11 million. Guests began whispering. Cameras rose. Damon looked toward the journalists he had invited to cover his engagement. For the first time that evening, he seemed to understand that the audience he had gathered to admire him would now witness his collapse. This is a personal vendetta, he said. Nia faced him. You stole from the company before I learned I owned it. You're twisting the facts. Did you forge my signature? No. Yuna enlarged the authorization form. Beside Damon's copied signature was the photograph Nia had taken on the night he threw her out. A forensic handwriting report appeared next. Damon's lawyer quietly moved away from him. Nia continued. Did you use company property as collateral without board approval? Damon said nothing. Did you transfer pension funds into a shell company connected to Celeste's family? Celeste turned toward him. You said that money came from the Dubai development. Be quiet, Damon hissed. Her expression changed. Don't speak to me like that. This is not the time. It became the time when my name appeared on that screen. Nia looked at Celeste. The consulting company that received the funds belongs to your cousin. I didn't know. You signed 3 invoices. Damon told me they were legal. Damon's head snapped toward her. You knew exactly what they were. Celeste stepped back. The partnership between them cracked as naturally as ice beneath weight. Neither had loved the other more than they loved the life they expected to gain. Now that the life was disappearing, affection became an unnecessary expense. Ruth took the microphone. The board has voted to remove Damon Hayes as chief executive officer, effective immediately. Damon stared at her. You cannot do that. The vote was unanimous. I founded this company. Nia's voice remained calm. My mother financed it. My trust guaranteed it. The employees sustained it. She looked directly at him. You only stood in front of it. Ruth handed him a formal notice. Damon tore it in half. That changes nothing. It changes your access to the accounts. Yuna said, your executive privileges have been revoked. The company vehicles must be returned. The mansion will remain under trust control, and the locks will be changed tonight. Celeste's face lost its color. The mansion too? Damon turned toward her. Stop asking about the house. What else am I supposed to ask about? You lied about everything. I left my wife for you. No, Celeste said. You left her because you thought she was powerless. The truth landed harder because it came from the woman he had chosen. Celeste removed her engagement ring. Damon stared at it. What are you doing? I am not marrying a man facing a criminal investigation. You were involved. I was misled. Nia watched Celeste place the ring on the table. There was no satisfaction in it, only confirmation. Celeste had not betrayed Nia because Damon was irresistible. She had betrayed her because she believed Damon was rich. Now that the money belonged to Nia, loyalty had followed it out of the room. Damon looked around for support. His attorney avoided his eyes. Board members stood behind Nia. Investors whispered into phones. Celeste walked away. The man who had believed 2 women were competing for him suddenly discovered that neither wanted him. He turned to Nia. You think this makes you better than me? No. Her answer surprised him. Nia stepped closer. What makes me different is that I could destroy the company to punish you, but hundreds of innocent people would suffer. She turned toward the guests. The missing pension money will be restored. No employee will lose their retirement savings. No unfinished housing project will be abandoned. Executive bonuses will be suspended until every stolen fund is recovered. Ruth nodded. Several employees near the back of the ballroom began applauding. The sound spread, not because Nia had become rich, because she had remembered the people Damon considered too small to matter. Damon stood beneath the applause, holding 2 torn pieces of the notice that removed him from power. "You'll regret humiliating me," he said. Nia looked at him. "I regretted loving you." Her voice softened. "I'm finished regretting." Security approached again. This time, they stood beside Damon. He looked at the men he had ordered to remove his pregnant wife. Then he looked at Nia. She gave no command. She did not need to. Damon was escorted from the ballroom he no longer controlled. Celeste left through another door, without looking back. The initials above the stage remained glowing behind them. D and C. 2 letters celebrating a future that had lasted less than 1 evening. Nia stepped down from the stage. The strength that had carried her through the confrontation suddenly loosened. A sharp pain moved across her lower stomach. She gripped the edge of a table. Ji-hoon reached her before anyone else noticed. "Nia, I'm fine." His expression hardened. "You must find a new lie." Another pain came. Stronger. Nia closed her eyes. A glass of champagne slipped from a waiter's tray and shattered nearby. Ji-hoon looked down. Water spread across the floor beneath Nia's gown. She opened her eyes. "I don't think that was champagne." For the first time since she had met him, Kang Ji-hoon looked genuinely frightened. He lifted her into his arms. The most feared man in the ballroom began issuing instructions so quickly that 3 people called 3 different hospitals. Nia held on to his jacket. "Ji-hoon, I am here. The company will survive 1 night without you. My daughter is early. She is impatient. Like her mother? More dangerous, apparently." Despite the pain, Nia laughed. Hours later, Ji-hoon stood beside her hospital bed while rain moved softly against the windows. Nia held her newborn daughter against her chest. The baby was small, warm, and deeply unimpressed by the empire waiting for her. Ji-hoon remained at a respectful distance. Nia looked up. "You can come closer." He approached slowly. The baby opened her eyes. Ji-hoon stared at her, as though he had faced armed men, with less uncertainty. "She has your expression," he said. "She is 5 hours old. She already looks suspicious of me. She has excellent instincts." Nia shifted the baby carefully. "Would you like to hold her?" Ji-hoon hesitated. "I have never held a child this small." "You run an international organization. Organizations do not move without warning." Nia placed the baby in his arms. His entire body became still. The child curled one tiny hand around his finger. Something changed in Ji-hoon's face. Not dramatically. Powerful men rarely broke where others could see. But Nia saw it. The loneliness, the fear, the part of him that had protected people for so long that he had forgotten protection could be gentle. "She deserves a father who chooses her," Nia said quietly. Ji-hoon looked at the baby. "I will not claim a place I have not earned. I didn't ask you to." He nodded. Then he whispered to the child, "You will never have to wonder whether someone chose you." Nia turned her face toward the window before he could see her tears. 3 months later, Nia returned to Adesawa International Holdings as its chairwoman. Damon had been charged with fraud, forgery, and misappropriation of company funds. Celeste cooperated with investigators to reduce her own sentence, proving that betrayal remained the only skill she practiced consistently. The employee pension fund was restored. The company survived, and Nia did not become her mother. She became herself. At the annual shareholders meeting, she stood beside Ji-hoon and announced a new partnership between Adesawa Holdings and Kang Global Logistics. When reporters asked whether the partnership was strictly professional, Nia glanced at Ji-hoon. He looked at her daughter sleeping in Yuna's arms. Then he looked back at Nia. "For now," she said. Ji-hoon's smile suggested he was willing to negotiate. That evening, a small package arrived at Nia's penthouse. There was no return address. Inside, she found an old photograph of her mother standing beside Ji-hoon's father. A second photograph showed the wreckage of her mother's car. The third had been taken only 2 days earlier. It showed Nia leaving the hospital with her baby. Her blood turned cold. Ji-hoon took the image from her. On the back was a symbol drawn in red ink. His expression changed immediately. "You recognize it?" Nia said. Ji-hoon did not answer at first. "That mark belonged to the organization my father was investigating before he disappeared." Nia opened the final envelope. Inside was a handwritten message. "Your mother did not die for the empire. She died for what your daughter will inherit." The apartment became silent. Nia looked toward the nursery, then back at Ji-hoon. 24 hours earlier, she had been a pregnant wife standing outside a locked home with one suitcase. Now she controlled an empire, had enemies watching her child, and stood beside a man powerful enough to protect nations, but wise enough to know she did not need saving. Ji-hoon reached for his phone. "I will increase security." Nia folded the message and placed it inside the black folder that had once proved she was the owner. "No." He looked at her. "Someone photographed your daughter." "I know. They are threatening you." "I know. This is not Damon. These people will not be defeated in a boardroom." Nia fastened her mother's emerald necklace around her throat. Fear still lived inside her. But fear was no longer the person making her decisions. "You taught me how to defend an empire," she said. Ji-hoon's eyes darkened. Nia looked once more toward her sleeping daughter. "Now teach me how to start a war." And somewhere across the city, a man who had waited 12 years for Nia Adesawa Adebayo to claim her inheritance smiled at the photograph of her child. Because Damon Hayes had never been the true enemy. He had only been the door that finally closed. And behind it, an older war had been waiting for the owner to come home.